Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to that Valo Intranet webinar. We are super excited today because we're talking about a very, very hot topic, very modern stuff and robots and AI and that kind of stuff. That scares me, actually. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, so we're going to send the recording of this webinar to all of you directly inside your email. So if you're registered, you will get that. We're also doing a follow-up post on the topic of the day today, so you're going to be able to see that right there. So what's the topic of the day? It is add chatbots and AI for everyday wins. So how can you add chatbots and artificial intelligence in your workplace to actually win every single day? I'd like to introduce myself. So if it's your first Valo webinar, my name is Sebastian, my name is Seb. I am a product evangelist and partner manager at Valo. I am also an office development MVP. And I'm joined today by a good buddy of mine, Matt. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good, Seb. How's it going with you?
Pretty good. A bit rainy here. Montreal is under a pretty big shower storm, but besides that, I'm going good. So Matt, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt Wade. I'm an office servers and services MVP. So I'm actually a civil engineer by training. Spent 4 or so years working on nuclear reactor design for the US Navy, but kind of fell into the Sharepoint and ultimately the Office 365 thing, sort of by mistake. These days I consult on 365 out of the DC area, and it's beautiful out. I'm looking out at the stage 2 of the cherry blossoms that you see in DC.
Nice.
And I work for the company I work for, which is called H3 Solutions. We recently rolled out a new Azure and Office 365 based bot platform, which is sort of my new life mission. So that's what we're talking about today.
Awesome. I like the fact that you went from kind of nuclear stuff to SharePoint. Like you need to be in like a nuclear engineer.
Just to show off.
No, just to go to SharePoint. I love it.
Yeah, right.
So the agenda today will be fairly simple. We'll do some quick introductions on what is Valo and why we think that bots are important in our offering. We're going to discuss a bit about what is AtBot, what are you guys doing over in DC, and why bots are important. And then, how can you win? How can you win by adding chatbots and AI into your digital workplace? And we are going to have Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window. We'll try to squeeze them towards the session today. But if we're not able, we're going to keep a bit of time at the end to be able to present those questions to Matt, and he'll do his best to be able to answer them. I hope so. So what is Valo? So Valo is actually a pretty cool platform that takes care of your digital workplace. So we are the winner of the 2017 Best Internet and Extranet Award. Same thing for 2016. We're also being finalists in the Best Mobile Solution. So we do cover from a mobile to a desktop perspective your digital workplace. And what we do is we serve more than 300 customers and over 800 users in more than 35 countries. So we're pretty much everywhere around the world. We like to be kind of a Swiss knife of intranet. So we do fit very well in a bunch of different sectors. So from consumer good to retail to media to finance and all of the others, we're excited to be able to fit in those digital workplace stories in such awesome customers you can see right here. We come with 3 ready-made intranet themes, but it's not just a theme, it's the full intranet experience, full intranet offering, including the features, including the projects, including everything you would expect from an intranet perspective. We have 3 different offerings at Valo. We have our Valo Intranet, which kind of covers all the most popular intranet features in one beautiful package. And we focus a lot on the user experience. So for us, it's super important to be able to give the user an intranet that makes sense and that makes SharePoint a lot more user-friendly than it is out of the box. Or is it on the classic or on the modern side of things? We do support both. We also have our Valo Teamwork, which is our Office 365 groups offering on top of SharePoint. So you can find and manage all the groups, your team sites, and your collaboration tool directly from Valo Teamwork. You can also extend your team's collaboration right in here using Valo Teamwork. And I'm pretty sure that Matt today will talk a bit about how teams can help you have a better digital workplace experience. And finally, Ibm Management. It's, for us, a very interesting offering we have that helps you to collect and nurture ideas using gamification. So you can collaborate with your friend, adding new ideas, responding, commenting, liking ideas to make those ideas a real thing in your organization. So in 2 or 3 minutes, that is what Valo is all about. Matt, what about you? Tell us, what is AtBot?
All right, so what is AtBot? I would say actually we're a nice complement to Valo because we build off the digital workplace. Everybody's talking about bots these days, and while few of those people are really explaining the real practical value, bots do have a lot to offer. So I'm going to cover that part in a bit. But building a bot from scratch is like super technical and really difficult. So AtBot is the first real sort of bot as a service option for the Microsoft Cloud, and we give you bots pretty much code-free. So in that way, AtBot's kind of like Sharepoint. You don't build your own content management system from scratch, right? Sharepoint is your foundation. Give it content, organize it well. It can be really good. And if you want to go further, you can develop custom tools. In almost the exact same way, AtBot is that. So we are sort of a bot in a box in the same way that Valo is an intranet in a box.
Kind of a BaaS,
Yes.
bot as a service.
We are BaaS.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So Matthew, you prepared an awesome session today about why chatbot and AI will make you win your digital workplace, will make you more productive in everything. So if you want to take over and start your presentation, that would be awesome.
Yep, let's do that. Jump into my screen and get my slides up. Cool. All right, so today I'm going to talk about why chatbots and AI and machine learning, all these kind of buzz phrases that everybody's been talking about, but really hasn't really shown a whole lot of real value in the workplace, why these things are actually pretty good, and also why AtBot specifically is really cool because we built it as a platform service so that you can kind of just get going in a matter of days as opposed to a really long time. So I think the first question here, we're not talking about bots just for the sake of bots. Why would we want to look at a bot? And I think the big question, the big answer to this question is where do you keep all of your data? Right? Your data is everywhere. My data is all over the place. You got your stuff in email, you got it in Sharepoint sites, Valo intranet sites, even public websites maybe, but you're also keeping your customer information in a CRM. You probably have on-premises servers, maybe SQL, keeping some sort of database that's important to you for your work-related purposes, your HR info system, knowledge bases, and I'm sure, even though we don't want to admit it, almost all of us probably still have shared drives someplace. So being able to connect to all these things from one, really nice user experience is definitely important. We want the experience to be more natural and definitely a better, more user-friendly kind of thing. But if you were to go out and sort of like build your own personal app or local custom app, you're talking, if it's a GUI, a graphical interface, you're talking a really hardcore development process, making sure that everything talks to each other correctly. Well, when any of those systems that you connect to are updated, you're going to have to change the graphic sort of experience, which is a lot of work. You're going to have to be doing a lot of project management, a lot of agile, Scrum sort of development work, all that kind of stuff. And you really shouldn't have to do that. Plus, as people kind of move forward in the whole modern experience with their mobile devices, I realized that the conversational UI, and it was for me up until only a few months ago, is sort of a weird experience. But it doesn't need to be because you've already probably played with Alexa on your Echo, your Amazon Echo. You might be playing with the Google Home. I love my iPhone, but I will say I probably wouldn't use Siri as the comparison here. But you kind of want to have your own plug-and-play Alexa version for internal. Imagine if your Alexa at home or your Google Home, if you could program that or give it steps, actions, and even like phrases and language understanding and force it to know that as opposed to go through some sort of natural learning process, which takes a lot longer. The other thing here is the next generation, Generation Z, maybe even the youngest millennials, Generation Y, are very used to this. And eventually it's going to go from sort of a typing-based input system to much more verbal, talking to the system. I admit I still don't see myself talking to my computer directly, but I do know that my little cousins do talk to their devices all the time. And they're going to be coming into the workforce soon enough, and they're going to be wanting that type of technology. So it's really the integration here of connecting to all of your stuff, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the cloud, in various systems. You want to be able to connect all this stuff together and bring it in through one interface and you already have an interface built for you. That would be the experience that a bot would use in like Teams, or if you want to access it in Skype or into a SharePoint or Valo site, things like that. It's all the same bot, and you can bring it up. Multiple bots can do multiple different things, and I'll show you exactly what that means. So really the connecting, being that glue that connects all these things is the most important part. But any good bot has to do 3 other things. Okay, first, it has to be able to understand things. It has to take language and run with it. Generally speaking, each bot would probably have its own language, but the tools that we're using will provide multilingual services, so you can get into a number of other languages. The second thing is it needs to be able to do things. So a bot's kind of pointless if it can't set up a reminder for you, or send an email out, or set an alarm, or, I don't know, onboard an employee. So if you were to go tell your HR assistant bot to go do XYZ task, it should be able to do that if that's a high ROI type of task that needs to be automated, right? The last thing is knowing things. I should be able to ask my bot a question and get some answer. I think this one's critical because I am a former knowledge management professional. That was my role for a while. And I think that chatbots are going to end up being sort of the thing that shakes up knowledge management. People have talked about this whole just enough, just in time, just for me concept since I was in elementary school. And we still haven't pulled that off effectively yet. You can fill document libraries and metadata tag everything until your heart's content, and people will still complain that they can't find the file they're looking for. You can respond and say, go check out the search engine, and search is still going to be unpredictable. If people leave crap in the system, crap will pop up in the results, right? And you can sure override it with one best bet in the old SharePoint lingo, or a promoted result in today's lingo. So yeah, if I look up the term benefits, I definitely want to make sure that the 2018 benefits document pops up and not the one from 2015 that HR forgot to delete 3 years ago, right? So if I can tell my bot that based on these different sort of phrasing uses that general humans in that vernacular language use, I say, how much, I don't know, what percentage do I get on my 401k investment, that kind of thing, which is a typical thing here in the States. I realize that's a very state-specific thing, but what kind of matching I would get from my employer, that answer should be there. The bot can give the answer and not just link you to the 437-page employee handbook where you have to go Control-F your way through it and just hope that the phrase that you use is exactly the phrase that shows up in that PDF, right? So you can have a smart bot that comes back with, here's the answer, here's the source if you want it, and you're done. So now there's no more questions that are going to be going to the HR department or maybe IT. You're asking a lot of questions over and over, or the help desk is getting the same questions over and over. Those are the types of things you want to automate. So there's a lot of value to bots. That's the big thing that I wanted to mention. Now you can go off and build your own custom bots if you want, but the sort of risk here is that you're going to need, this is a full-on project, okay? I can give you some examples, no names and no consultancies attached to it, but you're looking at a team, if you want to custom develop this, of 4 to 6 people. Most of them are going to be developers. You'll need a project manager. And those resources, especially bot coders, are somewhat rare. They're being picked off kind of like blockchain people these days. They're very popular in the field. So if you can get a good one, congratulations. If you can't, don't be surprised. But those are expensive, resources. You're also looking at a lot of time. Okay, so this is a good sort of concierge bot or enterprise bot. If it crosses borders between IT, HR, healthcare, finance, that kind of thing, you're talking even longer. But I would expect a 6-month timeline between bringing the team together for a kickoff and rolling out an actual product that people can start using. All right. And that implies cost, right? So whether it's $, a euro, a pound, whatever you happen to use locally, it's going to cost you a lot. I will say I have heard of quotes being given out from well-known consultancies to larger enterprise organizations for in the 7 figures. We're talking $1, $2, $3, $4 million US for a project like this, right? That's insane. You can build a custom developed app for probably less based on the cost of the developers that you're going to need. So keep the cost thing in mind. And last, maintenance. Anytime you're going to want to add some new task or some new information that you want to teach the bot, you're probably going to have to bring the thing down for maintenance. You may have to go through an entire new Scrum process to get through that. And it's difficult. It would be like saying that every time you need to put in a new SharePoint site or a new Valo site, you're going to have to pause everybody's work for a few days just to make sure that you can get that thing out there. That's not realistic in today's world, right? So these are the kinds of things, downsides that come with building a custom bot. So why AtBot? Well, we look at it as we're the complete, as you said, BaaS, bot as a service platform for the Microsoft Cloud. Okay, so our big thing is that you can release a custom bot. It can be branded as you'd like it to be. It can be called whatever you want. You can have multiple of them in our premium level service. You can have a bot done and out in hours, literally hours. The demo that I'm going to give you today probably took me 5 hours to set up totally, right? And we can add on to it later on if we need to. We give you an admin portal, so you can administer this whole bot environment with ease. Once the Office 365 tenant admin creates the system or opens it up, starts the trial with us, they can actually appoint other people in the organization as administrators. They don't have to be Office 365 or SharePoint administrators, so they can be their own. You can be the owners of AtBot. And then once the bots are ready to go, they can actually be added into Teams or into SharePoint or into Valo. In SharePoint and Valo, you're literally adding it just as at the user level as an app. It's just like a document library, and it'll show up either web parts if you wanted to, or it can be a little pop-up that's available in all of the pages within that site. We also have a proprietary and very easy to use language understanding tool. We basically use a foundational service from Microsoft, and we supercharge that. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means later. And then we build our business processes on the fly. We're using another Microsoft product. Everything that we actually connect to is in Azure. So everything that you want to do would be within the same security realm of whatever you're doing currently in Azure. If you happen to be using Office, well, you would likely be using Office 365, but if you're jumping into other Azure services, it's all within that same cloud. And then we can teach it knowledge in minutes. So really the big thing here is no code unless you want to get fancy. You can go off and develop custom things and just add it on, but that's just an add-on. It's just plugging in. So it's really kind of nice that somebody can go off and be a super hardcore show-off developer, while the rest of us, and for the record, I don't code. I hated SharePoint Designer back in the day, so when it came to like automating workflows, and we'll get into a little bit more on that, but this is the kind of stuff that really almost anybody can do. It's almost scary how easy this can be. So let's talk about the technology. So AtBot, I mentioned, or ABot, has to be good at understanding, doing, and knowing. So AtBot's connection here is our understanding process comes from Lewis. This is Microsoft's cognitive services tool, which is spelled out, it's language understanding intelligence service. So that's how we do all of our understanding and figuring out what somebody means when they say something to the bot. The doing part is Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow, if you haven't played with it yet, comes with almost any Office 365 account, license, and I think all of the Dynamics 365 licenses. It is the successor to SharePoint Designer. That's Microsoft speak. In reality, it's the replacement because eventually Designer will be retired in 2026. But it is just so easy to use. It's amazingly. I was so anti-workflow for the longest time, and then I got into the flow stuff, and it's really, really cool. So that is the logic engine of AtBot. So that's what makes AtBot do things. QnA Maker is literally a 2-column database with questions and answers. The questions are generally different ways to phrase the same thing, and the answers are the same answer for all those phrases, and you can add more and more. You can import these like by scraping public web pages. You can upload an Excel spreadsheet, so you have a nice sort of master copy locally someplace, or you can edit it right in the browser. You retrain the thing, you publish it, and boom, it's done. So you want to add something or you found a spelling error, you can have it fixed within 2 minutes and out and live and good to go. So once you have AtBot, you can surface it. Natively, it's in Teams, right? So it is a Microsoft Teams native feature, right? But you can also add it to SharePoint as a SharePoint framework extension. So that's SPFX, if you've heard of that. You can add it to any other intranet, Valo being a SharePoint product, or product built on top of SharePoint. It can be added just as easily. And you can also connect it to something, to any sort of local app if you have, or you can connect them to a custom thing. So through direct line, you can connect to Facebook Messenger, Twitter, or any other custom app that you might have. The nice thing about Teams, I just want to point out too, is that our bot as a service is available natively on pretty much every major operating system. So because Microsoft Teams is on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and Windows Phone, I know that Linux is one of the top requests right now for the user voice on Teams. It means that your bot is available literally anywhere, natively. So you don't have to worry about that. You can get the bot showing up in your intranet. So it can basically, if you're on mobile, you can be going to whatever web page the bot is on. The bot can pop up and actually take up your screen. So you're just having a bot experience. And in that situation, you can actually save that web page on your phone as an app, right? So you could literally have the bot as its own app if you wanted to do it that way. So that's on the inside, the authenticated side. We also offer anonymous bots. These are web bots, things that you would put on your homepage or your web page. We actually use this on our website, so atbot.io. If you want to check it out like right now, go right ahead. The bot will pop up and ask you if you have any questions. You can go through, you can ask it some questions, you can even get a quote. We have a cost calculator in there. But like any restaurant, for example, should have a bot on its homepage answering the question of what's your menu, what are your hours, and where are you located? Like those three questions are the big things that I never seem to be able to find if I'm just poking around on a website someplace. And this is the kind of thing that in like, I'd say 20 minutes, we could have that set up and rolled out on a public website, no problem. And of course, on the authenticated side, you're going to be able to connect to Valo. So if you take a look at an example, say Valo site here, we generally have our bots show up in the bottom right corner. I know Valo has some activity going on in there, so you could actually have the bot be added through the Valo icon. Some other clients have been interested in having a static web part where the bot chat shows up. Kind of similar if you ever throw Yammer into a SharePoint site, it's similar to that. So you can have the bot be something that hides away and doesn't take up space, or it can be on a page and available whenever you want it to. So I'm going to jump into a demo. Seb, I know that you were going to take a look at questions. Was there anything that popped up yet?
Yes, actually.
Sure.
One of the question is, I've built a couple of flows internally. So I've been working on Office 365 for a long time, and I built flows that are doing stuff. Can I reuse or kind of re-architect those flows to take advantage of AtBot within my intranet? So let's say, I don't know, I have a flow that creates something in a quote in a document library. Can I just go in my intranet and ask that question, and it's going to automatically do that for me? 100%
yes. So the nice thing with Flow is that our connectors, if you're familiar with Microsoft Flow, our connectors are both triggers and actions. So the flow itself, if it's coming from the AtBot, it would have to be triggered from AtBot, which means that you'd have to have a different copy of the flow that is specific to AtBot. So if you have to make updates to those two different flows, you'd have to do it. If you had to make an update to the business process, I guess, the general idea, you'd have to update it in both places, but it's literally just a trigger change, no big deal there. And you'd have to provide some response, experience to the user. So that's literally just putting text in as I'm the bot, I say this. So it's totally doable, and that's the nice thing about Flow. You can just export a flow and then re-import it and then make your changes and run it live in minutes.
Awesome. So all the hard work that we've been doing on building stuff or whatever, we can automatically bring that hard work directly inside like AtBot in a click of a
feed it
in a couple of clicks.
AtBot is hungry. Feed it to AtBot.
Awesome. Cool. So for now, that's all the questions we had. So
perfect. All right. So I'm going to bring up an example SharePoint site. So let me just refresh this. This is a modern SharePoint site. We're using this as sort of a demo HR site. Okay, so imagine we're working for this company called Pelican Energy, and we have a bunch of links. We have some upcoming events. We have a bot pop up on the right side. Well, would you look at that? We have some news. We have some documents. We have key contacts. It's pretty out of the box, nice, pretty modern SharePoint site. But I do have this bot that popped up. After about 5 seconds, you don't have to have it pop up. If you don't want to get bothered by the bot, by all means, leave it as a little closed box, or you can have it included as a web part in here as well. But you'll see the bot, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see it a little better. The bot says, "Hey, I'm Ask HR. I can answer any HR-related questions, blah, 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 blah." So we have figured out, or seen at least, and read up on this, we're not the only ones saying this, that the most common thing that people say to a bot when they first experience it is either hi or hi there. So I'm going to be a stereotypical human, and I'm going to say hi there to the bot. And my bot's going to come back to me with a response. Now, this is pre-written. I put this someplace, right? But I didn't code it in. I just put it into a nice table someplace where it come back. So it comes back and reminds me, I'm HR bot, ask me some questions, or if you need any help, type the word help, and we'll actually have a little help screen that pops up. So if I'm in an HR bot, there are questions about HR stuff that I'm probably going to want to know. And maybe I forgot, let's say, how much vacation time do I get? And for those of you in Europe who get way more vacation than us Americans, that's good for you. But for the rest of us on this side of the ocean, we do get, it's up to our employer how much vacation time we get. So you'll see here, the answer is actually an answer. It's not just a click here for a response. That's where I think the big thing is going to change with knowledge management. I can provide an answer directly, sort of the too long didn't read format, and say, okay, here's all the information, blah, 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 blah. Read it. If you like it, great, go away, leave me alone, come back to me later when you have a question. But if you need more information, by all means, go to the employee handbook. And you'll see that this link opens up a PDF. It's actually this PDF down here in the documents section. So it is the employee handbook, which is right there, opens it up. But when I open this up, I get employee handbook, I get holiday pay. Oh, there's the paid off time policy. I didn't ask about vacation. I didn't ask about PTO. I didn't ask about whether I was salaried or not. I didn't ask about over. So if I were to look for the word vacation, I don't even know if it's in here. It's not. The word vacation, if I do a find, is not even in here. So if I wanted to find that answer based on the terminology that I use, which is vacation. Now, the formal terminology for this company, let's say, was not using the word vacation, it was personal time off. It'd be a pain to find this. Now, this is just a demo document. I kind of built it off of some past experiences, only a few pages long. Any good organization, especially enterprise size, has a bureaucratic employee handbook that's dozens, maybe hundreds of pages long. So I skipped that. That person doesn't need to look through that, doesn't need to skim, and best yet, they don't have to call HR because I don't really feel like looking through that document, so I'm just going to call you and ask you because I can get the answer quicker. Don't have to do that. The bot can do it. Now, let's say that, all right, I now know how much vacation time I would normally get. I know that maybe I haven't used any. I can always look it up. I could even ask here, how much vacation time do I have left? And it could be connecting to the HR information system and provide an answer. But I'm just going to say I'm ready. I know that I need to take a vacation. So I'm going to say I'll be going on vacation June 7th through 11th. And for those of you who prefer the 7 to 11 of June, that is all based on how the language understanding works, and it goes based on your culture. So if you happen to use that format, the format will be used where you are. So I'm going to, it's asking me what kind of time do I want to take off. I'm going to say vacation. These buttons are super easy to put in, no coding required. It's just a choice option built in through Flow. And you'll see here it's saying, I'm going to send your vacation time request out to your manager. You'll notice there's a name here. That's because with Flow, you can pull the Office 365 feature or field, I guess, of my manager. So it knows exactly who to send this approval to. So let's assume that Joe did actually read his email. He sits down the hall a little bit. And that this isn't just a timer delay for demo purposes, but Joe approved it. Great. I've deducted the number of hours from your bank. You could include the number of hours left based on what service you're using, and anything else. Have a great day. So let's say that I'm a nice human, and I have manners. My mom taught me well, and I say, thank you. Bot comes back and says, no problem. Hey, it'd be really helpful if you take this survey. Yeah, sure. I got a minute. So the bot can come back and give me some options here. And the big thing with this survey, the big thing to point out with this survey is that this is a different flow from the asking for time off, right? So these are two different things that the bot basically had led me through based on my what I've said to the bot. So it says, thanks for taking the survey. How would you rate your experience with me? I'm going to say awesome, because that's what my paycheck requires me to say. And anything else I want to add? So this is kind of a comment thing, right? So I'm going to say, surprisingly useful. Thanks. Bot gets back and says, thanks for submitting. Have a great day. So what happens here? I'm going to bring up PowerPoint again. I'm going to show you a couple things. So the first thing that I kind of showed you was how much vacation time do I get off? And that's coming from the thing called QnA Maker. And it's literally, you can see here, it's got two columns. These are your questions. And on the right side are your answers. Your answers are pre-written. Your questions are either actually worded questions or they're just keywords or phrases that would probably pop up. For every one of these that has a different phrasing, you provide the same answer. And one thing that I like to do, I actually like to keep track of all this stuff in an Excel spreadsheet and then upload it into QnA Maker. You can have one QnA Maker service, that's what they're called. One database here is called a service, connected to each bot. You can't really have one bot that would have to pull from multiple places because they could actually conflict. But you'll see an example here. I was building something for a client of ours on how to do some basic stuff in Office 365. So should I use SharePoint or OneDrive? And I provide an answer here with a link to resources in that site that would provide more information. But again, it answers the question first. Then what's the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive? What is OneDrive? Why use OneDrive? What is SharePoint? A lot of these are going to be the same. They're just different ways to answer the same question. There's a lot actually of best practices that come out of this that have been kind of interesting. And I've blogged about that on our blog to try to give people some heads up. But this is the first step. This is where that how much vacation time do I get question came from. Okay. Now, let's see. So questions here, answers on the right side. I always want to link to sources because I can't make a statement that's not cited. Just like, when you write papers in college. And you want to make sure to, the one thing here is, yes, it's really simple to use, but you want to make sure you keep it up to date, right? But it's nice, it's an easy central place to keep up to date versus God knows how many different documents in your SharePoint libraries or across your systems, wherever they happen to be.
Matt, we just got a question which is actually exactly related to what you were talking about.
Sure.
So here you talk about links, sources. I see it looks like it's like a markdown type of, type of format.
Yep.
Can we use images? So kind of a way to highlight a bit more in images what we're doing, or maybe a link to that?
So inputting an image directly into the bot response, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to guess most likely. I do know we just rolled out a new feature where you can upload an image to the bot. So that's really good for like if you're submitting an expense report and you take a picture of the receipt. But you can definitely link to an image. As long as the person has access to the link, no problem, right? If it's on a public website, great. If it's on a SharePoint site and you're logged in, also great. And it's just a link. So it's just going to bring you there. And if you're not logged in, just log in. I don't know if the image can go back directly from the bot, though.
For sure, the bot framework, so the technology behind it can support multiple images. But from QnA, I'm also wondering. We also have a pretty interesting comment, and I'd like to have your input on that.
Sure.
So a lot of people are saying that they love bots, but is that just a glorified FAQ in the end?
So is it? Okay. It's funny because as we kind of demo this to clients, their first thing is, oh, I need that FAQ. That FAQ is going to be great. That's what QnA Maker does. That's the low-hanging fruit of rolling a bot out, right? Yeah. Get the answers in there for all that. And people always ask me, well, what should I put in there? I go look at your SharePoint search results, your analytics, right? Find the 50 most searched terms or topics in the last year or two and make sure you have answers to every single one of them and make sure your answers are vetted and point to the correct source. But it's not just about that. On an immediate case basis, you're going to get a major win off of having a good, knowledgeable bot, right? It's really getting into the language understanding and the Microsoft Flow stuff. You want to take your typical business processes and you want to automate them. And now you can actually do that. With that whole term of the idea of a citizen developer, this is where the long-term ROI is going to come back, is as people add more and more automated processes to the bot gets that. It's like sending the bot to school. The bot starts out in kindergarten and then goes through high school and then goes to college, gets a graduate degree, and then gets his PhD. The more stuff you teach it, the more universal it can be. So yes, it is just an FAQ bot. If I just have QnA Maker tied into it, don't make that mistake. Go further, automate this stuff. And I'm going to show you a good example here for an IT help desk in a second, where there's a big difference between just like creating a ticket and actually like troubleshooting. So I hope that will have some value to the questioner.
Awesome. If I can add also to your answer here, having like a out-of-the-box FAQ feature in Valo, having an out-of-the-box IT ticket system built in directly to Valo, yes, it's a low-hanging fruit. It's easy, so it's like a new UI for that thing. Right. But then you can also get your people to used to a bot, and then they will start asking for more. And we saw that in some stats. And then you can build what people are looking for. So that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, and that's why I go after the high ROI stuff, those low-hanging fruit, because people are skeptical of a bot at first. They just assume that it's stupid until they're proven otherwise when they go through it.
Exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. So let's talk about the logic stuff. So after we go after that low-hanging fruit, as I take my microphone out, we go into the automating processes. Okay, so this right here, this is a screenshot of a Microsoft flow. We call it an AtBot skill because once a flow is completed and it's connected to AtBot, we call it a skill. So this is actually a skill that I have created to close a ticket in ServiceNow, which is a very well-known or well-used IT ticketing service out there, and that has some connections that you'll see in a second. So you'll note that this is totally GUI based, right? So that's one of the major benefits here. It's all these little boxes. You get to bring variables through, in between are basically fields, but they're kind of sort of variables. Between steps, you can do if statements, you can do switch statements, you can do apply to eaches, basically loops. And again, I know I speak as if I am a coder. I am not. I reiterate again that I can drag and drop colorful boxes and put some pieces of information in them. I cannot code this if I wanted to. I would have to go back to school and rip my hair out and be bald by the time I was able to code this directly.
And the great thing here is that we see more and more workflows being built with Microsoft Flow. So it's just leveraging the existing skill set of people right in there.
Exactly. And, Flow is the new workflow tool for Microsoft. So you're going to find a very large grouping of people who have experience with this, and they don't have to be, NASA grade computer scientists. These could be, anybody in a knowledge organization can be doing this kind of stuff. And so the big thing here is the WYSIWYG, the what you see is what you get, workflow editing. And it also integrates with hundreds of third-party tools. That is the big thing. So at the very first slide, I mentioned how this brings together, it's the glue of all the different services. There are so many flow connectors now. People end up building templates. We have a number of templates that you can actually start from. So we end up creating one that works out really well, and then we'll submit it to the flow team. They review it, make sure that it's, give it a sanity check, and they make it available. And you can see if you go to flow.microsoft.com, and you check out templates, there's a whole ton of them there. They put them in order of most used, which is kind of funny because the most used one I think is the send me a notification on my phone if my manager emails me, which I think is hilarious. But if you want to integrate with something else though, because I mentioned this is the glue, and this is also a platform that you can kind of go off and develop if you want to. If you have some devs sitting around that are just looking to stretch their legs out a little bit, you can connect to something local. So if you want to connect to a local SQL server or to SharePoint on-prem even, potentially almost anything. As long as you are willing to go develop that custom connector, the connector is available to anybody in the system. So that means that once you build it once, it's available to everybody. So that means you just democratize the idea of automating business process across the company by giving one little piece of, one little nugget of goodness to everybody. So this is where Flow kind of jumps in for us. Then you have Lewis, okay? So what Lewis does is you basically have these different things called intents. And for every intent, I want to kick off an action. So Lewis goes with Flow. Lewis doesn't really go with QnA Maker. QnA Maker has sort of its own little Lewis built in. But if I want to say submit an expense, you'll see at the this whole list of different things here. These are all different ways to say the same thing. Whether I need to submit an expense, or I spent $5 on lunch today, or yesterday's breakfast cost $18, or all that kind of stuff. And you go through and you basically come up with different phrasing for the same intent. And this is where the machine learning portion of this stuff all comes in. As you add more things, Lewis is smart enough to sort of fuzzily connect things. It's sort of like search. It's not really something you can predict. But the nice thing is once you train it, you can find out exactly how sure it is about various different ways of putting things. You'll see on the right side, there's a listing of these numbers. They say 0.98, 0.96, 0.95. The scores go up to 1.0. And as long as it has, if you have other intents, it's going to score based on those other ones. There are other intents in this app, actually. And there's usually one app per bot and multiple intents per app. And it's so sure of those first few there that it's giving them almost 100% accuracy on being that correct thing. Okay, so those are the three Microsoft services. Again, these are all built in Azure. It's all available to you with an Office 365 and Azure subscription. What does AtBot give you? Well, AtBot provides the opportunity to take those skills. Now, this is an actual screenshot of our AtBot portal for us internally. We have a whole number of different skills here. which type they are, whether or not they're keyword-based or if they're Lewis-based, or natural language versus like command line, who made them, and then we categorize these. In fact, we require categories. So let's say I have 100 skills in here, 15 of them are for IT, 25 of them are for HR, the rest are for something else. You want to categorize those correctly so they show up for the right bot. This is also kind of a backdoor way to permission protect skills. So if somebody doesn't have access to a certain category, they can't actually run the skill. So a good example of that is, imagine that there's an HR bot. Everybody has access to the skills like request time off, submit an expense, something else, let's say anything else. But the internal HR team needs to be able to run certain skills that are like onboard an employee, offboard an employee, start performance review process for employee. Those skills should not be available to me as a general user. They should only be available to HR. But we don't need to have half a dozen HR bots doing a whole bunch of different things. So we can effectively categorize those HR internal skills separately from those HR everybody skills and permission protect the internal skills to use the AD group that would be HR. So you can actually have a person in HR do anything they need to from the HR bot, and me, the commoner outside of HR, will not see those sort of higher end internal skills. There's a lot more that comes with AtBot, including the difference between, and I'll show you in a demo in a second, but we have, you can have multiple bots in here. You can brand them any way you want to, give them different avatars, different names. You can integrate with Lewis to a higher, even higher level than what is available there. And like I said, we also offer the external side of things. So here's our central list, and here are categories. And now let me just jump into a new demo here, because I think the HR stuff is cool, but this one's even cooler. Okay, so I am in Microsoft Teams. I'm on a Mac, so I am proving to you that this is something that is cross-functional, and I'm going to say to my bot, help. And this will give me a listing of things that are available. Once I close Sharepoint. Okay, so the bot responded. If I had any, I could have further help here if I wanted to, but if I scroll, these cards will let me go back and forth. I have different keywords where I can do things, or I can use natural language. But let's say that with the IT bot, I need to have a ticket. I need to submit a ticket, and we're using ServiceNow as an example. And actually, I'm curious, for those of you watching, if you are using ServiceNow, I'm not asking who you are or what company you represent, but just say yes, or I use ServiceNow, something like that. I'm curious to know how many people use ServiceNow here. But here is ServiceNow. We have a demo tenant running. So if you happen to use ServiceNow on the IT side of things, this will look familiar, whether you love it or hate it. And let's say I want to tell my bot that I want to open a ticket, right? So I need to submit a trouble ticket. And actually, let me grab Lewis, and I will show you exactly what I'm working with here. So this is Lewis, and these are the different phrases that you could say to open a ticket. And you'll see they range in scores here. So like this, I'd like to open a ticket, actually is only 81%, compared to these other intents that I have, update, close, add an Outlook account, none. None would be like bypass me and go someplace else. So these are the different phrases. I have a whole bunch. You have to have 5 minimum, otherwise Lewis won't play nice with you. But otherwise, it's good. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to send. So it is taking this phrasing and effectively comparing to all my things here. And it's going to say, I'm happy to submit an IT ticket for you. What kind of trouble are you experiencing? So I'll say, I need to add an email account in my Outlook app. Okay, great. So the bot is currently running through Flow, and it comes back and says, thanks, I have submitted a ticket for you. Here's the ticket number. So it ends in 502. So if I go over to ServiceNow and I refresh, there's 502. And if I click on 502, it gives me, I need to add an email account in my Outlook app. So that flow is now done. Okay, this is the farewell. This is the, okay, got it response. But why do I want to say I need to submit a trouble ticket? That's not my problem. My problem is actually that I need to add an email account to my Outlook app. Now, in a second, it's going to get a response, and I'm going to let you pick. So, Seb, keep an eye out. Everybody take a look when it comes back. It's going to ask me what operating system I'm working with. So, somebody out there pick. Do I want Windows, Mac OS, or iOS? Somebody shoot.
iOS.
All right. So I selected iOS, and it is currently running through our Lewis and 10 vectors. So it's actually going to ask me all of these things first. This iOS, Mac OS, Windows stuff happens before we'd ever even do it in Flow. If you're familiar with Flow, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, God, I have to ask these questions, and I'm going to have all these different if statements to do blah, 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 blah. Well, you'll see I provided my answers iOS. The bot got back to me and says, thanks for the info. Sounds like you want to get a new info or a new email account added to Outlook on your iOS device. And I will be super nice here, and I'll show you the flow itself. If I open the flow, don't get too scared. This is actually very simple. First thing I'm doing is I'm getting the user profile, so I can say this, thanks for the info, Matt. I automatically am creating a record in ServiceNow because even if I'm going to troubleshoot automatically with the bot, I should get credit for the ticket in the IT metrics field, so I know that I'm still doing good work. All right, and then I open up this switch statement. A switch statement is simply sort of like a super if statement, and basically it's saying if the response is Windows, do this. If the response is Mac OS, which is this one right here, do this. If the response is iOS, do this. So you see this thanks for the info? Should look very familiar to you. Thanks for the info, give a name. Sounds like you want to get a new email account added to your Outlook. So that's just one statement back. I delay it just so people can read it, a little human-friendly thing there. Then I send another response, which is the actual troubleshooting process. First, try this. Open Outlook, click the menu, blah, 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 blah.
And here, Matt, I guess I could, that specific iOS troubleshoot could, for instance, in that case, live somewhere in SharePoint. I could do a query to SharePoint based on a request, get the response. So even like from an IT perspective, you could build a bot and build a flow. And from a subject matter expert perspective, everything could reside anywhere else than in Flow. So you can even be more user-friendly or expert-friendly to be able to have that inside SharePoint. So that's even better.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Cool.
So you'll see the delay here was let the user troubleshoot. Now, I used 10 seconds for a demo. You probably want to give the person like 5 minutes or a couple minutes to play, but here is the statement. Then there's a pause, and then I get this comment back. We're able to get the new account added to Outlook, Matt, and I'm going to say yes. And if I jump back over to ServiceNow, actually, I missed out on the excitement here. So I am in 503. You'll see issue adding an email account. Okay. So it says, that's great. Glad to hear the account was added. Sounds like we're all set. Don't hesitate to contact me again, blah, blah, blah. This will be the time to put a survey in too, just to get extra bonus points. But I just want to point out what happens with ServiceNow is it keeps track every time a change is made to the record. So here is the first one, right? New. Person puts in here that there's an issue. The issue is adding an email account in Outlook. And then the closing code here was user was able to add account to Outlook using the standard instructions on Microsoft's website, right? So if I went back to, sorry, I didn't even show off the actual answer. If I were to say you want to see more details, click here. It just brings me to Microsoft's webpage and shows how to add an Outlook account to an iOS app, right? So if I jump back into Teams, if I jump back into ServiceNow, you'll see that's there. And let me just grab Flow. The update after this, because I say, did this fix it or not? Were you able to add the new account, yes or no? And if the response is yes, then I update the ticket and I close it. If I don't, I leave it open, and I could potentially categorize it so that the correct team, like let's say the Exchange team or maybe the mobile BYOD team, whatever, would get it. So I can add that as a category. So again, yes is on the left, no is on the right, and then it ends. So if I had said no, the bot would come back and say, sorry to hear that didn't work. I'll get a ticket assigned right away. It's a secret that the ticket was actually started the second that they contacted the bot, but nobody needs to know that. Only IT wants that for the metrics. So I think this is a really good way to show that like your IT tier 1 support, if you take the top like 25, 30, 50 tickets that you get on an annual basis and make sure that those are automated and provide the back and forth. You can connect to whatever KD you use if you want to make a custom connector, where you can type stuff in here yourself directly. It's a really big win for you there. So that's sort of the end of that demo.
I have a question there.
Yeah, sure.
Here we're using ServiceNow as an example, but that could connect to any type of service. It could be from a SharePoint list to whatever else. It's not a service. Okay, so it's...
Yeah, in fact, the nice thing is that if it's Microsoft-based and it's in the cloud, it's basically 100% compatible. But here are the list of connectors. Let me see if they have... Actually, I'll just scroll through. But there are, like Zendesk is in here. Let's see. Anybody that uses Salesforce is going to love this. If you use Bitly, if you're in the marketing field, Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe Sign, DocuSign, if you want to get something like an NDA approved, boom, you can just automate it. Let's see, Zendesk is down here. Workday, if you happen to use that for your HRIS system. But you could even connect to ADP if you want. There's no connector for ADP, but if you want to custom build one and you have a developer out there that's just itching to go do something cool, this is a really cool way to do it.
Absolutely, and even maybe they have some APIs you can call just using the HTTP one.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah, true. Cool.
We have a question right now. Pretty good question, actually. Is the bot pulling the short answer from the Microsoft web page? The ways can we kind of can we use the website as the reference and not like if the information changes over there to make sure that we don't like overcomplicate maintaining the knowledge base on one end and the actual source on the other one?
You can definitely do that. The reason I went with this was because the length of the response would be the length of the Microsoft page, which was kind of long for a simple task. So I kind of I was kind of looking at it from what's the best TLDR that I could get out of this so that the user doesn't go crazy with a wall of text. But yes, you could definitely resource. You could connect to either an internal resource, KD, a list, even just a SQL database if you happen to have one. But a website is definitely doable.
Cool, excellent.
You could even be sort of user unfriendly and just say, "Here's the answer. Click here," or read this article for more information, which is the easiest thing to do, but not the most user friendly.
Makes a lot of sense here. Yeah. And I guess even in the end, you can even I know like Google is doing it, like kind of do like a web page browsing and figure out like based on titles and everything, like have a couple of steps that they do. So that's something that that could be done through the HTTP service or something.
Yeah, if you want to play with it a little bit, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So on the end of on the AtBot side of things, just to show you a little bit, actually just one quick thing I want to show you in the admin portal. So if I zoom in here, just so you can see it a little bit, this is our admin portal. If I look under my bots, just want to show you how super simple it is. I was using AskHR earlier, so that is the bot. Here's the name, the description. It's got an icon. So if I were to use the bot in Teams, you will see this avatar here, right? Mm-hmm. And then down here, this is where the help message comes in. It's literally just type in a field. Super, super simple. The categories, I'm using HR services. That's a category we had built, but you could use other categories as well. This is where the public HR services versus internal HR services section would go. And then QnA Maker is literally just two strings, effectively. And immediately, once you put that information in, which comes directly from QnA Maker, if I were to open up the HR bot here and go into my settings, it's right down here. These two pieces of codes. All you got to do is drop them in there, press save, and boom, your QnA Maker is live. So you can be working on that ahead of time, and it takes 2 seconds to connect. So I'm a big fan. These are the kinds of things that I get a little bit itchy sometimes when it seems like some serious hardcore devs are out there just doing things just to show that they can, almost like an academic project. This is not academic. I am very much a real world practical kind of guy for the digital workplace, and this is very, very practical in my mindset. So I'm going to jump back quick. Let's see. So if you guys want to try this out, there is a free, full 100% free version of AtBot you can run now. It is just AtBot, so it's the pink AtBot. You can't customize it. You can't connect it to QnA Maker either. That is in the premium version. But you can have custom workflows if you want. So I actually use it to do my social media scheduling. I actually saw that. Yep, we do it to schedule our social media as well. So my personal stuff. So that workflow is not available to anybody else in my office. Our shared one is available to everybody in the office. So you can go off and do that. But we also offer a 30-day free trial on the enterprise version, which is our top tier version. That comes with Lewis integration, Lewis intent vectors, which is the difference between I want to open a ticket and I want to do, I need to add an email account to my Outlook app, or I need to schedule a meeting with Seb tomorrow. So knowing that Seb and tomorrow are two very important parts of that sentence, regular Lewis can't do that. So that's one thing that we do on top of it. And I've been working with clients now. We can get a proof of concept out for people within 5 days, like actual working. It can be affecting and positively impacting work days. But you get a 3-day or 30-day free trial, so check it out. And you want to check out the app, the Jumpstart Guide, because there are some prereqs. You do have to get some stuff lined up in Office 365, in Azure. And if you're not the O365 admin, you need to get to know that person, because they do have to do some stuff at the very, very beginning. But after that, we can send it out. The other thing is whetting people's appetites. If other people see that you're doing something really cool like this, they might want to do it themselves. Yeah. And if you buy a service like this and it's available to everybody, it's just like SharePoint. Like if they learn it, they can go off and do some seriously cool stuff that's going to really help things out in the long run. So if they see other inspiration or other use cases that are like, that's pretty cool, they can do the same thing for no added cost, right? You already have the subscription of the service, same thing as SharePoint. So then, resource-wise, check out our website. And then we also have that free trial, so you can check out that link. We have our Jumpstart Guide and then our blog. And if you want to, feel free to reach out to me if you want to, or you can just reach out to our hello@atbot.io. So I think that's the amount of time I've got, Seb, so I'll kick it back to you.
Awesome. So much, like a huge thank you, Matt. I really like the approach you're taking here. I think it is just plain awesome to see that living in and outside of SharePoint. We're big fans of Microsoft. Sorry about that. Of Microsoft Teams at Valo, and we really want to make sure that our solution gets to our users inside their teams, which makes it a lot of sense to have that part of at the same interaction with Valo that they have with AtBot in that case. If you want to see also from the Valo side, if you want to see what our solution is all about, how it integrates with the solution like AtBot, please drop us a line, hello@valointranet.com, or go on our website, valointranet.com/book-a-demo, and you're going to be able to see what we have to offer. I think both products are really working super well together and going to make your workday a lot more efficient, a lot more productive. Matt, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to thank everyone on the call for the questions and everything that we have been going through today. Matt, your last words?
Seb, it's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks, Matt, for your time. Thanks, guys, for sticking around. Wait a second, we might have another question. Thanks for the thank you for the demo. I hope we're going to be able to talk to each other very soon.
Sounds good.
And everyone, have a great end to your day. Cheers.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.